a couple of years ago. Actually, I think in 2022 we had 835 bodies found along the southwest border. Anybody who goes...
Say it again, because I want a lot of people to know that, including the press. How many people die just trying to come here?
So we know that we found 835 bodies
on our side of the border.
On our side of the border. We'll never know how many people have died on the Mexican side of the border. There are UN estimates about things like that. But anybody who has ever gone into the wilds of the Sonoran Desert or into South Texas knows that it's not uncommon for individuals to find corpses years after the fact in the brush. People simply get lost, they fall into distress, they die. With respect to orderly, we've seen a diminishment for a couple of months after the Biden administration implemented some of its new ideas, but that is spiked up. Preliminary reports indicate that 130,000 people entered the United States illegally. Anybody who goes to the southwest border and, looks at the crossers know there's nothing orderly about it. There's nothing legal about it. It's sort of odd that this passes without notice. Many people will say, people who come through the ports are doing it the right way. It's not. We changed the law. You'd rather change the law back in 1996 to change the law so that individuals who come illegally through the ports and individuals who cross the border illegally are treated exactly the same in the law. There's nothing legal about this. And respectfully, sir, as a former congressional staffer and as a lawyer, it's offensive to me to hear people talk about the law and misstate the law in that manner.
Okay. Next question. Did you say before a third of the women who make the trek here wind up being molested?
Doctors Without Borders did a report back in 2017, I think it was, in which they indicated, I think the actual percentage was 31%. I said nearly a third of all of them. A significant number of men are sexually molested on the way to the United States, and a not insignificant percentage are actually shot on their way to the United States.
Okay. Now, sometimes this jargon, people here in the audience might not know what you mean. You have a graph in your testimony talking about the number of gotaways who came here. I want you to explain briefly what the difference between a gotaway is and somebody who turns himself at the border, and then confirm if what this says is accurate. It looks like until the Biden administration took over, the number of gotaways, that is to say people who the Border Patrol did not touch and just came in here, looks like it was around 120,000, and now, in the most recent year in which you have full data, it's over 600,000. So we've gone up by a factor of 5 to 1 on the type of people we're not even touching. Is that accurate? I'm reading that right?
You are reading that correctly, and the definition of gotaway actually appears in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2017. It's now codified at 6 U.S.C. 223 for individuals that CBP knows have entered the United States illegally but not been apprehended. More than 500,000 in the last 2 years, almost 600,000 in FY 2022.
Okay. Sheriff Daniels, you said something that kind of struck me. The people that, you have jails, obviously, sheriff's office, have to run the local jail. Does this flow of people coming across the southern border, does this affect the amount of money you've got to spend on jail?
Oh, it does. If you look at just in the first 5 months of this calendar year, 683 people were booked in my jail for border-related offenses. That 683, 621 were felony. Cochise County Attorney's Office has 6 felony attorneys, to include the county attorney himself. They have record number prosecutions going on. I commend our county attorney, but that enhances our jail time, it enhances the prosecution time and investigation time, so it's a big burden on us.
I want to ask you, that many felons. One of the things we hear when I get around my district, sometimes people say, oh, these are all such wonderful people, they'd never break the law, blah, blah, blah. Do you find that true, that they would never break the law?
Well, let me summarize by saying this, Mr. Chairman, is what we see in Cochise County as part of the Tucson sector is fight and flight. For the most part, we lead the nation in the Tucson sector for gotaways. These are people that are aggravated deportees, whether based on criminal records of some sort or countries of interest that are being smuggled by the criminal cartels through our county, which places my law enforcement and my citizens at risk. That's why we prioritized our efforts to secure the border along with our Border Patrol partners and keep our community safe.
Okay, just one other question before I let you go. One of the things I always wonder about is, given the severity of the crimes you're describing now, Have things changed over the last 5 years? Can you tell me how you view the world today compared to if we had this hearing 5 years ago?
Well, 4 years ago, I was bragging during presentations around the country, to include my own state and my own community, that we had collectively made Cochise County one of the safest places on the southwest border. The cartels did not want to play in our backyard because we were ready for them collectively. I can't say that honestly to my citizens today or those when I present. We've seen what I call the new normal of border, and that is the fact that crime is rampant as a result of border crime, all the way up to murder, and we've lost citizens in this county, and we've lost people in this county that die at the hand of the cartels who don't care. I do care.
Okay, now so you understand how this normally works. Normally each congressman up here gets 5 minutes to question. I'm going to call on Congressman Biggs in a second, but since I see we have no Democrats here, we're going to give everybody 2 chances to ask 5 minutes of questions. Okay, Congressman Biggs.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Mr. Arthur. Just real quickly, the number of nations represented in the cohort of people illegally entering the country this year.
Pretty much every nation on the face of the earth. You'll hear numbers running from 150 to 186 different nationalities. We've gotten people from Nepal to Nigeria to Nicaragua, including Guadeloupe, which technically is a department of France, is as much as France as Paris is. So yeah, the door is wide open to anybody in the world to come here.
And Sheriff Daniels, let's talk real quickly. What is the actual dollar amount you have had to incur to incarcerate criminal illegal aliens?
We have a captain. Am I on? We have a captain for the sheriff's office that addresses all our grant and special programs to include this billing and oversight. He told me just this week that we just put a bill in over the last 18 months, which is over $6 million for border-related incarceration costs. And thanks to the state of Arizona, people like Representative Griffin and others that have support us down here. Otherwise, we'd be in trouble.
You have a number of high-speed chases that you've encountered in Sierra Vista. I believe the range is 2 to 10 on a daily basis on average. Is that right?
Yes, we had just the ones we got our hands on that we didn't disengage for community risk or for other reasons. We had 121 people booked in our jail just for failure to yield / pursuits in 5 months.
Yeah, in 5 months, 121 in 5 months. And so some of these have resulted in severe fatality crashes or severe injury crashes. So not only do you have the incarceration costs, you have the enforcement costs. This community is enduring medical costs. And the mayor indicated to me earlier today that on occasion the hospital has actually had been unable to take new admittances because of the dealing with illegal aliens and the health issues that they might have or accidents caused by them.
One of the biggest risks is the lack of respect or order by these criminal cartels. As stated earlier, majority of people we see from all over the United States via social media come here to pick up for smuggling purpose due to the fact it's very lucrative. It ranges from $1,500 to $2,500 per person to drive them from Cochise County to Phoenix, Arizona, or Maricopa County area. You pick up 4 or 5, you can see the numbers adding up very quickly. But the cartels tell these drivers, who a lot of them have criminal backgrounds, to just speed, just go as fast as you can, get out of Cochise County. That places, again, my citizens in harm's way, which has become terrorizing when they see red and blue lights. The message here in Cochise County, if you see them, pull over right away, just for your own safety. It's not a good situation.
Let's go back to you, Mr. Arthur, for just a second. Yuma Hospital reported to me last year, over about an 8-month period, they had lost almost $25 million in uncompensated care due to illegal aliens who'd come in and use their emergency department, and also that they were averaging 5 illegal aliens in the maternity ward on a daily basis. Can you expand on what that's done to communities across the country, particularly border communities? By the way, I'll just add that when I was in Eagle Pass last week, I was told that they just like here, they have times that their hospital is closed to new admittances from the local community because they're dealing with illegal aliens that are in the hospital. So tell me what we see nationwide.
So it's important to keep in mind that right now we're seeing what Yale News, I think back in September 2022, called a crisis in emergency departments. We think of them as emergency rooms. Hospitals deem them emergency departments, and that many of them were reaching peak capacity.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they mentioned in the article was that when those EDs reach 85% capacity, the average wait time is more than 6 hours for people to get through. Most of the people who come to the United States, as I mentioned in my opener, don't have health insurance. And we know from various sources, including the National Institutes of Health, that unauthorized immigrants in the United States disproportionately use emergency departments for primary care. They just don't really have another option. Under federal law, EDs have to take everybody that comes in, whether they can pay or not, or whether they have insurance or not. That's probably going to be the next thing, almost definitely going to be the next thing that we're going to see in communities across the country. Those EDs are going to become more and more strained. It's going to be harder for people to take sick kids, sick relatives themselves to the EDs and get treated in a timely manner.
We're going to have to do something in Congress about modifying EMTALA. And last question real quick, Mr. Ladd. I just want to know how law enforcement, you touched on this, the local law enforcement has actually kind of stepped into the breach of a vacuum because of the overwhelming nature of this that CBP has not been able to respond to. What has been the distinction when you have enforcement on your property and versus when you don't have enforcement?
Well, the Biden administration has threatened our sheriff department they can't do anything on the Roosevelt easement or any of the apprehensions. But the state law with the carrying drugs, the sheriff can absolutely apprehend them. But when the Border Patrol is depending on our sheriff department's program for their intel, that says it all. And Tim Williams talked earlier this morning about I think I've got $250 million of Homeland Security infrastructure on our ranch, including the wall. And the sheriff has done his program for $1 or $2 million and 5 deputies. That sums up the whole hypocrisy of what Homeland Security is doing on the border.
Thank you. My time's well expired. Yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Timmons?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank you for holding this hearing, and I've learned a great deal on my trip to Arizona, and I appreciate the witnesses for coming forward today to testify and help us really understand this challenge and try to find a path forward. I think the best thing to do is to just kind of go over how we got here. 30 months ago, our border was as secure as it has ever been. Through diplomacy, Mexico agreed to create a National Guard and station 28,000 soldiers along their side of our shared border. Migrants that sought asylum waited in Mexico as their applications were processed. Our federal government was working hard to finish securing our southern border using both physical barriers as well as technology. And I think this is the most important part. These policies that were being pursued by the Trump administration were mostly a continuation of Obama administration policies. It's not partisan, or at the very least, it shouldn't be. So what happened? Biden administration, first week, they signed executive orders ending all of this. They stopped construction of the border wall, leaving hundreds of millions of dollars of wasted taxpayer dollars along our border in miles of wall that has not been finished. They immediately ended the Remain in Mexico policy, and they allowed the Mexican National Guard to vacate their post. And what did that result in? What was the result of their actions? Since January 21, there have been almost 7 million enforcement actions. 3.4 million of those have been allowed to stay. So again, during the Biden administration, 3.4 million people have been allowed to stay in this country. That is more than the population of 20 states in the United States. It's more than the population of 20 states in the United States. If the influx of illegal immigrants is not enough, just this past year, we've seen 160 million fentanyl pills. 24% of those crossed the border right here in Cochise County. That translates to tens of thousands of deaths, if not hundreds of thousands of overdose deaths. On top of that, you have Democrat mayors in some of our largest cities who are experiencing crisis after crisis because tens of thousands of these people that have been entering this country, of the 3.4 million people that have been allowed to stay, they don't have the resources, they don't have the infrastructure to deal with all of this stuff. So, Mr. Arthur, my question to you is why? Why has the Biden administration done this? It's very clear what has caused this. It's very clear that we have a problem. Why have they done this?
Congressman, that's probably the biggest question that I get, and I don't know because they don't say. They pit this as Trump did this thing, Trump was bad, we're going to be good. We're going to do the opposite. But, as I mentioned, I served from presidents beginning in George H.W. Bush. I was a direct advisor, personal advisor to Attorney General Janet Reno. None of them would have done this. The Biden administration has removed all deterrents to individuals entering the United States illegally. No presidency in history has ever done that.
And in many instances, they've actually signaled that they should come, that they need to come. And that's just wild to me. Sheriff Daniels, when we were touring the border with you and your deputies earlier, they mentioned that the original height of the wall was increased to 30 feet under the Obama administration. Is that correct?
That is correct. Under President Obama, he had actually done a remodel on the existing border and raised it to over 30 feet, correct?
And so the Trump administration continued the Obama administration policies to secure our southern border, and this president, our current president, I don't understand. I think personally that he is attempting to exacerbate the problem to facilitate another comprehensive immigration reform. And, they attempted to do a lot of things in the Obama administration that I believe were illegal, but they originally said they didn't have the legal authority, the constitutional authority to implement certain programs. And then at the end of it, he said, well, if Congress isn't going to do it, we'll do it. I think this is a continuation of that effort to try to make this such a crisis that Congress will act. And I'll be honest with you, we need to act. We need to secure our border. We need to secure our population. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying from drug overdoses. Millions and millions of people are entering this country illegally. We have a massive problem. We're trying to grow our economy. Every person that comes to me from my district that has a business says that they have a workforce challenge. These people aren't going to work in our factories and our businesses. They're in a shadow economy, and it's not good for them. It's not good for anybody. And we need to put a stop to this. I will use my other 5 minutes to add additional questions. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To all of our witnesses, thank you. Thank you for being here. Sheriff, how you were mentioning to us in your earlier testimony about gotaways. Can you tell us, how do you know how many folks got away? What vehicle do you use to observe or measure gotaways?
Congressman, yes. We use two methods here in Cochise County and the state of Arizona. Currently, we have a virtual camera system that runs the whole state of Arizona and parts of New Mexico that's monitored 24/7 through my office. We use our statistical data and compare that with our Border Patrol partners to ensure that we have accurate numbers on gotaways. Gotaways are defined as people that are seen on cameras that are never apprehended. The other aspect on the CBP side, one of the tools they use is the aerostats, commonly known as a blimp. I was told this year that out of the 13 blimps, they were coming down at the end of this fiscal year, which is next month. There's only 4 left, from my understanding, one being here in Cochise County. That the sophistication of camera equipment on those aerostats is one of the main ways of counting the gotaways. Now, I can surmise and say the fact that when those 4 come down, what are we going to be using on the federal side to count gotaways? I predict those numbers will go down drastically. I've asked in D.C., I asked what the replacement of those aerostats would be, and they said they haven't developed the technology for that yet.
And so what is your understanding would be the reason in taking those aerostats down?
Well, one thing I continue to say and continue to hear, and sadly I have to say it, is the fact that the numbers are an illusion. I call them non-political numbers if they're reported accurately. But number 2 is it's a shell game. It's a shell game. It's a word game to make the American people feel safe. When we know here at the community level, especially here in Cochise County, that's a false narrative. I would also say this, and in my travels, part of National Sheriffs as Border Chair, I deal with all the way up to the Chief of Border Patrol and many others. I have yet to have one tell me that the border is secure, those who wear a badge from the federal government.
Sheriff, have you met with President Biden and discussed your concerns?
We have attempted, on behalf of national sheriffs, western sheriffs, major county sheriffs, and southwest border sheriffs. I was told during a recent summit here in Cochise County and beyond, as sheriffs came together to find reasonable and balanced methods to secure our borders, secure our communities who we represent. I was told that President Biden is the first president in history that has never met with one of America's sheriffs.
And so, to your knowledge, President Biden's not met with any sheriff in America to talk about border security.
I just got back from another meeting in Florida with sheriffs, and to the best of my knowledge, he still has not met with any sheriff in America.
Has anyone in the administration given you any encouragement or told you that they were behind the sheriffs in America to partner with dealing with this crisis?
To answer that question, Congressman, the answer is no. I will caveat that with this. On the onset, myself and about a dozen selected sheriffs that are very engaged from the urban areas to rural areas to the southwest border to the interior met with Secretary Mayorkas. I actually personally hand-carried him a 16-point collective plan to secure our border that was put together by sheriffs around the country, to include my border committee at national level. 3 months later, I had heard nothing. Approximately 3 months later, I asked him where that plan was. He had a chance to review it to see if we can have some collective thinking or compromise. He asked me what plan did I give him. So that's the last I've heard on that.
What can Congress do to help you and the other sheriffs address this border crisis?
I would ask all Congress members to, first of all, set aside the politics. This is not a political issue. This is a public safety, national security, and humanitarian issue. I've said this, and I'll say it again. Once we set the politics aside and look at the political reality, or excuse me, the community reality of what's going on, we need to prioritize and identify the issue of our border, all our borders. We need to share a message, local, state, and federal, on what the border means and what we need to do with it. We need, which is enforce the rule of law based on actionable consequences. We need enhanced judicial oversight on our border, which, if you put that in comparison, if I took all the judges out of Cochise County, when we arrest them, have to see them the next day, the judges see our incarceration folks, and there's no judge, they're automatically dismissed and released. That's what's happening on our border, and together we can move forward. But until the politics is removed and people get their head out of the sand, we got to get that done before we can move forward.
Sheriff, do you think that this is a political stunt in what you see today? Do you see this committee behaving in a political way?
I've had the opportunity, obviously, Congressman Biggs and Cisco Monte, I've worked with being our own congressman from Arizona, but the other three I have not met with you until today. I will say this, I applaud you all for coming here, because you show the respect toward our community, and you made it actionable by being here and listening to us. Not just me, but others and people in the community with the roundtable with some folks this morning. I don't think this is political. People like to use that word because it's cheap, but the reality is I applaud you all for being here and just listening to what we have to say. And the people in the room that are here supporting, thank them too.
All right, thank you.